Hello. Let me know in the chat if you can see me. I'm so excited. This is the first live on this channel, and I'm just super happy to be here with you guys. Hi, Molly. Hello, Jenny, Avi, Rex. Oh, awesome. Thanks, guys. Sweet. Okay, let's get into it. This is an Enneagram Crash Course with the goal of hoping that you will find your Enneagram type, or at least get closer to finding your main type. So let's get right into it. Hi, Susanna. Hi, Linda. Welcome. Thanks for being here. If you're new to this channel or you don't know who I am, let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Abby. I make funny and educational videos about the Enneagram on the internet. I live in Los Angeles with my husband, John, and my adorable puppy, Lemon, who you've probably seen on the channel because I'm obsessed with him. And I am an Enneagram type 3. And the reason I started making all of this Enneagram content is because I read a book. I read The Road Back to You, and I got to the Enneagram 3 chapter, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this explains so much. And I cried, and I don't cry often. It really impacted me and set the tone for the rest of my life, honestly. I felt for the first time not alone. I could see why I was making certain decisions. And for the first time, I really felt seen, and I felt like I had something to work with, because for the first time I had like pinpointed what was driving all of my actions. And so that aha moment was life-changing for me, which is why I'm so passionate about other people getting that aha moment. So that is my hope for you today, that you will have an aha moment of like, oh, okay, that's why I do the thing that I do. That is my main hope. So if you could all kind of introduce yourself in the chat, let me know your name, where you are in terms of your Enneagram journey. Do you know your type? Do you not know your type? Is this all new to you? I would love to see a little bit more of information about you guys. I know Avi wrote up here, she said she's torn between a 1 and a 3. She's either an achievement-driven perfectionist or a perfectionist overachiever. 4 just started dating a 5. Amazing, Croak. We've got an Enneagram type 9. Gretchen is an 8 wing 7. Hi, Gretchen. And yes, Lemon Drop is a legend. Linda thinks she's a 4. Okay, great. And if you're not sure, that's the reason we're here. Catherine says 8, and I'll fight you on it. That makes sense. Amazing. Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to drop your number in the chat and your familiarity with the Enneagram. Meg says Enneagram 3, I think, was between that and 6. That was mine too. I really resonated with 6 as well. Molly thinks she's a 3. So many 3s on this live stream. This is so exciting. Kiki thinks she's maybe a 7 wing 8. It hurt my feelings when I realized it. Yeah, that's something that we'll get into. Usually when you find your type, it's like unpleasant. You cringe a little bit because it's like, oh yeah, I do that. And it's embarrassing. Like honestly, if you're cringing when I'm talking about a certain number today, it's probably your number. I'm just going to say it. Hannah's an Enneagram 4. Hello. You're the same type as my husband. Hi, Scott. You might be a 9, not sure. 5 wing 6. Khalil might be a 5 wing 6. Oh, thank you for your support. Anna, 9 wing 1. Hi, welcome. Derek is a 9 wing 8. Took me 2 years to learn mine. I spent the last 2 years flipping. Karen says a 6 that tends to feel like an 8. Amazing. So you guys just keep putting that in there. for each other to get to know each other. And let's dive in, shall we? What the heck is the Enneagram? So the Enneagram is a theory that there are 9 different ways to see the world. And this symbol that you see right here is the way that we picture the way these 9 perspectives are. So these are the 9 types. The word Enneagram, Ennea means 9. It's Greek for 9, and gram or gramos is Greek for drawing. So the drawing of 9 types. And if you take anything away from this live stream, let it be this, and it is the basics of the Enneagram. It is the core 4. What sets the Enneagram apart from other personality typing systems? Well, it looks at why you do the things that you do. It doesn't look at what you do. It says we could all do similar things. We could all come home after work and binge an entire season of Gilmore Girls. But the reason why we're doing that is going to be different. And those whys are the core 4. That's your core fear, desire, weakness, and longing. And something important to note before we dive in is something that is, I love that Enneagram teachers are emphasizing, and it is this. The Enneagram isn't a box to put yourself in. I know it sounds kind of limiting to be like, there's only 9 different ways to see the world, and that's it. You're stuck in a box. The Enneagram is a tool that you can use to see yourself and others better. It's not an end-all be-all of who you are as a human being. It is a framework and a tool that you can use to grow, to have compassion and understanding for the people in your life. And that's all. I fully believe it is a great tool for using it, but you don't need to feel like your entire life is in a box now. That is not the way that we are going to be using the Enneagram today. So that said, we talked about this a bit in the beginning, but when you find your Enneagram type, you generally cringe. Like, it's not pleasant to see the worst and the best things about yourself written down and be like, oh, that is why I do that. Like, that is my main weakness. Like, I do that. It will hurt. So just a reminder, this isn't, I think that the Enneagram is very fun. But there also is a difficult, more challenging aspect to it. And that's the nitty-gritty stuff that comes up. So I just want to encourage you to take what works, leave what doesn't, have compassion for yourself. Like, as we go into it, I want you to, hold what is going to make you grow as a person. And if you feel like something you're just not ready for, or it just doesn't resonate with you, leave it behind. Again, this is a tool. This is a framework. This is not the end all be all of who you are as a beautiful human being. So, like I said, if you can take one thing away from this live stream, it is the question, why do you do the things that you do? The Enneagram's all about looking at your internal motivations. For example, so I used the Gilmore Girls, coming home and binging a season of Gilmore Girls example. You could also make a lasagna and drop it on the floor after you've taken it out and the glass shatters everywhere. And then you could cry about that lasagna. The reason you're crying about the lasagna might be different. An Enneagram 2, for example, might be crying because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to contribute to this dinner party. I'm not going to be helpful. People aren't going to love and appreciate me. An Enneagram 8 might drop the lasagna on the ground and feel like they are out of control. This is the one thing they could control and they can't control it, and they feel powerless. There are so many different reasons why we do the things that we do. The first is your core fear, and that is the thing that you are always running away from. What are you trying to prevent from happening at all costs? Next is your core desire, and that's the thing you're always running towards. If I get this thing, I will be fulfilled. If I just get there, it's going to be okay. And then your core weakness, which is the main issue that you're wrestling with. And something to note about the core weakness, oftentimes in workshops and things I'm asked, what about the Enneagram is different from, say, like Strengths Finders or Myers-Briggs? And I think the core weakness is one of the biggest things that sets the Enneagram apart. we are looking at not only your strengths, but also the weaknesses. And we're saying, hey, how can we use these weaknesses to get better and grow from them? How can we help manage our weaknesses instead of letting them manage us? And the last core motivation is your core longing, which is the message that your heart needs to hear, but you don't necessarily know that. Like, you're running towards your core desire and your core longing is over here like, you need me. But, we're usually more focused on our core desire. Something I want to note before we dive in, there are a lot of different triads or groupings of threes within the Enneagram. I find them to be incredibly helpful when you are trying to find your main Enneagram number. So the triad that I am going to bring to the forefront in this live stream is the Centers of Intelligence Triad. And that is the triad that shows you how you process, respond, and react to life. So you can have 3 different ways that you respond to life. You can come from your gut, which is the instinctive center that focuses on anger and a desire for justice. There could also be the head triad, which is basically you're reacting through mental analysis. It's known as the thinking center. Or the heart center, the feeling center. You're all about like, what do you feel? What's going on in your heart? And you're usually reacting from an emotional standpoint. So I find that very helpful for you to narrow down which of the triads might you be in? How do you react when something happens and there's a problem that needs to be fixed? Do you usually jump right into your heart, your feelings? Are you usually trying to fix it from a mental perspective? Or are you just like gut reactions? It's just happening. You're go, go, go. So I find that to be very, very helpful. Thank you, Introverted Chick, for the super sticker. That's very sweet. Just checking in. Hey, Frog Party. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you. And we will have a time at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions, hold on to them. We're going to get to them. Now, I have an exercise for everyone. So if you are around a piece of paper and a pen, pull that out. Otherwise, you can just use your phone. It's called the positive and negative exercise. So basically, fold that piece of paper in half or pull up 2 notes in your notes app. And on the first plus side of the piece of paper, you're going to write, what do you like about your personality? How would you describe your positive traits? How would other people describe your positive traits? What do you bring to the table? And then on the second half of the piece of paper, you're going to write, what are you a little bit less proud of? And I don't want you to sugarcoat it. We're obviously not going to be asking you to mail them in and show them on YouTube. This is private. You can be as honest as you possibly can. What are things about your personality that make you cringe? And because I don't want you to be all vulnerable alone, I'm going to share with you my positive and negative exercise on the internet. Okay, so some positive things about me. I'm very creative. If I have a task and a deadline, I get it done. I'm really good at encouraging other people. 3s are really good at being cheerleaders. I'm super efficient. I'm all about getting it done. It doesn't really have to be perfect. Let's just get it done. I have a good sense of humor. I like to make people laugh. Those are all things that I find to be positive about my personality. On the flip side, I am easily frustrated when other people are taking too long on something that would take me, in my opinion, way less time. I can be very impatient and a little bit judgmental. I struggle relaxing and being in the moment and actually enjoying my life. That's something that my husband is really good at. He's a 4-wing 5. He's really good at being present, being rooted, and enjoying the day. I am always 35 steps in the future worrying about what I need to do in order to be the most successful version of myself. It's exhausting. I worry too much. I'm not very sensitive to other people's feelings. I'm really mean to myself. These are all really negative things about my personality that I do not like. So I want you to have your positive and your negative piece of paper and keep it in mind as we go through the next section. This is not the positive and negatives aren't like an ethical, like you're good and you're bad. It's just part of who you are. And that's what the Enneagram types have. They have the negative and the positive, and it's not like morally good or morally evil. It is just who you are, and it exists all together. So that's why I think it's important to keep track of your positive aspects and your negative aspects, and that could help us as we move into learning about the 9 types today. So keep that in mind as we go into the next section. We're going to talk about Enneagram type 1s. This type is known as the perfectionist or the reformer. They feel personally obligated to improve themselves and the world. I imagine type 1s being the type of person who will lay in bed at night, kind of imagining that 4th grade like talent show that they did when they messed up the words and everybody laughed at them, and they're now 45 and laying in bed and still thinking about it. Like, this personality type is very perfectionistic. They want to be good more than anything, and they have this inner critic that is very, very mean inside of them. They're very tough on themselves. So let's go through the 4 motivations of the type 1 and just notice, is this me? Does this sound like my main motivation? So the first motivation of the type 1 is their core fear, which is being wrong, inappropriate, or corruptible. Essentially being in a situation where you are just like socially wrong, or you do a faux pas. That is the worst like situation for a type 1. Being told that they did something bad, that can be just absolutely heartbreaking for Enneagram 1s. The core desire of a 1 is to have integrity and to be good. They want people in their life to look at them as upstanding people. They want to fulfill their purpose, and their purpose is to make themselves and the world around them better. Their core weakness, and this is where the cringiness comes in, okay? So hold grace for yourself if you feel like you might be a 1. Core weakness of a 1 is resentment. And that comes from repressing feelings that things aren't perfect. Jody in the office break room never closes the fridge all the way. And that just keeps happening, and you keep closing the fridge after her, and you keep getting a little upset about it, and it just stews in your mind, and it becomes this simmering anger that is way bigger than the actual act of not closing a fridge. It's frustration with other people for not living up to your standards. It can also be frustration with yourself for not living up to your very high ideals of how you should be. And that frustration, that anger is a big weakness for the Enneagram type 1s. And then the core longing is the thing that you want to be true. You want to just hold in your heart. You just know that you are good. That is something that type 1s need to hear, long to hear. If you are married to a 1 or friends with a 1, I highly encourage you to speak that core longing into them, because it can be very encouraging. This is the type that beats themselves up the most. They are so incredibly mean to themselves. So anything you can do to counteract that, to help them fight that inner critic, the better. Amazing. Okay, so again, we'll have comments at the end, questions at the end, if anything is coming up for you in this live. So let's talk about Enneagram type 2s, shall we? This type is known as the advisor or the helper. I talk about this a lot in my videos, but I used to live with an Enneagram type 2. Hi, Kimmy. She's definitely not here. She's definitely at work. But her name is Kimmy, and she was the most social person I have ever met in my entire life. And I'm not saying that all twos are extremely extroverted, but this woman prioritized relationships over everything. She was one of the best friends I've ever seen, like the most supportive person. She was like making flower arrangements for her friend's wedding, like for free on the weekend. She was in like 4 different book clubs. She was setting people up. She was always like trying to make people love matches. Like she is the most extroverted, most social person in my life that I have ever known. And that I think is a really good representation of what a 2 could look like. They take a genuine interest in other people. They have incredible skills in terms of nurturing, giving advice, being helpful, walking into a room and knowing immediately that like Sally needs a hug, John needs a snack. Like they are very intuitive people. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, the stuff that, actually matters, not the behavioral things. Cause you could have very social types you could have a social 4, a social 7. You can have lots of social people. But the thing that makes you an Enneagram type 2 is your core motivation. So let's look at those. The core fear of a type 2 is being rejected and unwanted. So that's why, if you haven't noticed, breakups can be absolutely devastating for 2s because it goes right down to their core fear of, I don't want you, I don't love you. Their core desire, on the flip side, is being appreciated, loved, and wanted. They want everyone in their life to look at them and be like, wow, they help me so much. I never want to get them out of my life. Like, I need them to be around because they're so incredibly helpful. I love them so much. The core weakness of an Enneagram 2 is pride. And I know that sounds a little odd because 2s are very selfless, or they appear very selfless. So you're like, how could they be prideful? They're always doing things for other people. Well, the pride is actually in ignoring your own needs and charging forward, believing that you alone have the answers to everyone else's needs. Do you need to go to therapy and haven't taken a shower in 3 days? Sure. But you know what? John's needs are way more important than that. Like, I just need to go help other people, forget my self-care, forget my own needs and desires. I know what is best for everybody else. That is the kind of pride that happens in an Enneagram 2's head if they are not doing so well, if they are in a more unhealthy path. Give me a second. I need some tea. The 3s all showed up to take notes. LOL. Hi, Abbey. Good to see you. Love your name. Awesome. And then the core longing of an Enneagram 2 is to know that you are wanted and loved without having to do anything for anyone else. That is so difficult for 2s and honestly for 3s because they have very similar core longings to internalize of like, hey, you don't have to do anything to receive love. You are just loved. All right, let's talk about the next Enneagram type that you could be. This is Enneagram type 3. They're known as the achiever or the striver. They are typically kind of stereotyped as like the Don Draper kind of person, like from Mad Men, the overachiever wearing a business suit, being a CEO of something. And that is a component to Enneagram 3s. They want to be successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all 3s are, in the corporate ladder. It means that 3s want to be successful at whatever it is they set their minds to. That could be a stay-at-home mom, it could be a physician, it could be a retail worker, it could be a writer, whatever that may be. I was listening to Leave It to the Gram. What is it? Do It for the Gram podcast on Spotify. I highly recommend. And in that podcast, he was talking about how 3s want to be seen by an audience. They want people to see them and recognize that they are doing a great job at what they're doing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical audience. Like a 3 could be going for a run and there's not people out watching them, but in their heads, they're thinking, what does a successful runner look like? How can I be the very best runner that I can be? And I was listening to that podcast and I was like, that's me. I'm not a runner, but like if I'm working out, I'm like, how will I be the best fitness girly right now? Like you kind of become a chameleon to whatever room, whatever place you're in, because you want to be the best version of that person. And that I'm just going to skip right to the weakness actually, because that really ties into it. The core weakness of a type 3 is deceit, which is basically trying to be that runner and completely ignoring who you really are. You're a human being going for a run, enjoying the fresh air. You have your own needs and desires. You don't necessarily have to look like you're about to run the Boston Marathon. It is deceiving yourself into believing that your worth is based on how you look and what you do. So the core fear of a type 3 is failing at your goals, failing to be successful, people seeing you as worthless. That to me was my biggest fear all through life. That's what really got me when I read about my Enneagram type. I was like, oh, that's why I have a huge fear of my parents not being proud of me. I didn't want them to see me as worthless, and it felt like life or death. And realizing that it wasn't, and that it was just like a core fear of mine, was incredibly like a breath of fresh air. Like I felt like I could let go. And then the core desire of a 3 is on the flip side, being admired, successful, and valuable. Like Enneagram 2s, their core longing, the thing that they need to hear, but they don't necessarily know they need to hear, is you are valuable simply for being you. You are loved for being you and not for what you check off your to-do list. Let's talk about Enneagram type 4s. This is my sweet, sweet husband, John. They are known as the romantic or the individualist. They approach life creatively. They value their ability to connect on deeper levels and see the beauty in the world. In The Road Back to You, Ian Morgan Cron, one of the authors of that book, he is an Enneagram 4, and he talks about how 4s would rather go to the moors of Scotland and wander and listen to poetry and think deep thoughts, and in the frosty moors, rather than go to Disney World for a vacation. Like type 4s are very much looking for authenticity. They're looking for a wide range of emotions. They want to have an impact on the world. In fact, their core fear is dying, leaving this planet without having made an impact on the world. They need their self to be important. And I'm not saying that in terms of like, oh, she's so important, but important on a level of, did you make something that matters? Did you impact people in a way that matters? The core desire is to be unique, special, and find your authentic self. You don't want to leave this earth without having lived to your fullest potential as who you are. The core weakness, the thing that might make you cringe of an Enneagram 4 is envy, which is feeling like you're missing that one thing that just is elusive that everyone else seems to have. And I want to note, this isn't jealousy. Jealousy is wanting, say your friend Sarah has just a beautiful house and you're just obsessed with it. It's not wanting Sarah's actual house. I really wish, I had Sarah's house. It's looking at Sarah's house and saying, what does Sarah have that led her to getting this beautiful house that I don't have? I envy the traits that Sarah has, that in which she is able to make this life happen for herself. That is the weakness of the Enneagram 4. It's feeling like they are fundamentally flawed. And then their core longing, that thing that they long for in the world, is to know that their authentic self has an impact. And that can be really tough for 4s because they struggle with imposter syndrome. They struggle with putting their big ideas into action. So if that sounds like you, if this is resonating, you may be an Enneagram type 4. I'm going to pop into comments. Abbey says, that's an awesome Enneagram type. I do indeed love me some Enneagram 4s. I love all the types. Obviously, I'm partial to 4s just because I married one. Meg on Cloud 9 says, me being like, I'm not successful enough to be a 3. Yes. So it's oftentimes 3s do think this, like, oh, I'm not successful. It's not success in terms of the corporate ladder. Okay. It's success in terms of whatever you view success as. There's so many ways to be successful. Yeah. So that's great. Thanks, guys, for all the comments. Again, we're going to have time for question and answer at the end. So if you have questions, save them for the end and we will get into them. Let's talk about Enneagram type 5s. Do I have any 5s in the chat? Let me know if you're here. I love you guys. This type is known as the investigator or the specialist. They are perceptive and innovative observers. They actually tend to want to observe over actually participate in life. So this might be the kind of Enneagram type that dips their toe in the water to test it. Maybe they brought like a little, what do you call it, dropper to test like the particles in the water. Is it healthy water? Meanwhile, Enneagram 8s are cannonballing into the pool and 5s are like, let me just read a book about pools and how to swim before I actually dive in, right? They are lifelong learners. They experience the world as this big, amazing thing to be learned about. And on the flip side, they also view the world as intrusive, right? So they focus their energy on gaining knowledge. That relates right back to their core fear. This is how you'll know you're a 5. If you feel like you're unable to meet outside expectations because of ignorance and you're afraid of not fitting in with the world or being equipped to actually go into life and experience things, and you use knowledge to try to battle that fear, you may be an Enneagram type 5. Your core desire is to be knowledgeable, capable, and competent. Essentially, you want to go into any situation and know exactly what to do. You do not want to look like you don't have it all going on. You want to look like you have all of the tools to go into that situation. You want to be the person who jumps in the pool and is an Olympic swimmer and knows everything about the pool and the water solubility and I don't know, all of those things. Like, you want to be competent in every area. The core weakness of an Enneagram 5 is avarice, which when I first learned about the Enneagram, I had no idea what that word meant because I'd never heard it in real life. So essentially, avarice, I like to explain it in terms of Smaug, the dragon from The Hobbit, who loves to hoard his treasure. And once his one ring, he just wants all of that in his possession. And I think of 5s as Smaug, but instead of treasure, what they are hoarding is knowledge. So avarice is basically hoarding your inner resources, your energy, because you feel like too much interaction with other people is going to lead to catastrophic depletion of yourself. Okay, so that looks like fueling your cup for the day before you go out into the world. It being like, okay, here are the things I need to do today. I need to go to this meeting. I need to have this coffee thing. I need to go to the grocery store. And you're like, this is how much energy I'm going to need to do all of those things. So I am just going to make sure I'm not depleting any energy with anything unexpected. You are going to try to hold on to that energy so that you can get through the day as best as you can. And then the core longing of Enneagram 5s is to know that your needs are not a burden. And this is the thing that you should feel in your heart. If you are an Enneagram 5, you want to know that you are able to not know things. You can go into situations and have needs and be able to say, man, I don't know, I need help with that. Or can you go into the pool with me? Can we go down like the baby steps and do it together? Like that is something that fives long to know. We got a question for the end. This is awesome. If you could hold your questions till the end, because I don't know if I'll be able to, I won't be able to like scroll back up and look at them. So hold them for the end. That way I can get to them and I won't miss anybody's questions. Let's talk about Enneagram type 6. If you're a 6 or think you might be a 6, please put that in the chat. 6s are known as the loyalist or the skeptic. I have a 6 in my life who is very near and dear to me, is my little sister, Lily. And I like to say that she is a very go with the flow person. And hear me out, because if you know anything about 6s, you're like, that's not true. She is a very fun, go with the flow person. But the only thing is she has to know when the flow starts and what to wear to the flow and like what the general vibe of the flow is and who else is coming to the flow. But once she has all of those details, she is super go with the flow, okay? 6s need dependability. They are fiercely loyal. They're the ultimate team player. Their like superpower is troubleshooting. Like if you have an Enneagram 6 in your organization and something goes wrong, they're going to be your plan B, plan C, plan D people. They know how to get through bad scenarios because they've already thought of the 15 worst case scenarios that could have happened already. This type really struggles with anxiety. And I know we talked about the Enneagram type 1 struggling with an inner critic, right? They have this person on their shoulder being like, you're not doing that good enough. You need to be better. The type 6 doesn't just have a critic. It has a choir of people all around them saying lots of different things. It's an internal committee of lots of different voices saying this could go wrong, this could go wrong, this could go wrong. If any of you struggle with anxiety, you know how that feels. Let's talk about the core motivations of a 6. This is why you do the things that you do. This is how you can pinpoint whether or not you might be an Enneagram 6. So the core fear of an Enneagram 6 is losing support and stability. So that could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be relational. It's essentially feeling like the ground underneath you is going to give way at any moment. That could look like you're afraid of losing a job. It could look like afraid of your parents getting divorced, anything that might make giant change and make basically bad situations happen. You are going to be afraid of that. The core desire of a 6 is to have security, guidance, and support. They want to feel like the world is stable. They've got it going on. They can rely on the people in their lives. They can rely on their bank account. They can rely on themselves. They have a solid support system. The core weakness of a 6, is anxiety. Like we mentioned before, it's worrying about the past, the present, and the future. It's anticipating those worst case scenarios around every single corner. As you can imagine, this is exhausting. Like anxiety in itself is exhausting. Type 6s are exhausted. If they are in their stress paths and they're not taking care of themselves and they're giving into this worst case scenario thinking, it is really hard for them to go about their day-to-day lives. They will really struggle. So if you are in a stress path and you find yourself worrying all the time, you may be an Enneagram 6. The core longing of an Enneagram type 6 is to know that all will be well. You're okay. Like the world has got you. All will be well, and all will be well, and all will be well. That's a proverb. I forget where it's from, but it's like the perfect proverb for type 3s or type 6s to put on a Post-it and put on their mirror in the bathroom. So if that resonates with you, you may be an Enneagram 6. D. Olson says, my little sister is a 6, has an internal committee telling her that every wrong in her life is someone else's fault. She really struggles with it. Yeah, it's exhausting. Great. Let's get into Enneagram type 7s, shall we? If you're a 7, think you might be a 7. If you're married to a 7, let us know in the chat. We want to hear from you. 7s are known as the enthusiast or the entertainer. I'm drinking Earl Grey tea, by the way. The best tea. 7s are the ultimate joyful person, okay? They radiate optimism in all situations. I teach a lot of corporate workshops, and one of my absolute favorite things is, this is not good though, like people tell you not to type other people, and I'm one of those teachers who like, don't type other people, but in my head, I do type other people. And I like to go into corporate workshops and look around the room and kind of guess to myself, which of these people is an Enneagram 7? And generally you can tell just because they radiate positivity, they radiate, possibilities. 7s live life to the fullest. They struggle with a fear of deprivation. They're afraid of not experiencing all the things that the world has to offer. They just want to soak up every minute of being alive. So, as you can imagine, their core fear is being deprived or not making the most of their time on Earth, otherwise known as the ultimate FOMO. If you have ever heard of FOMO, it's the fear of missing out. And it's not just, 7s don't just struggle with a FOMO of like, oh man, I missed Sally's birthday party. Everyone else went and had so much fun. Like, yes, that's an element of a 7's FOMO, but their FOMO is so much more intense than that, because it's like, I am missing out on living my life to the fullest. Like this day I spent in the dreary office when the sun was out shining and I could have been out living my life and having these new stimulations and experiences. Like I have missed out on this day of life, and it makes 7s feel devastated. If you relate to that, this may be your Enneagram type. Your core desire is to be happy, fully satisfied, and content. And the weakness of the 7 is that they never feel happy, fully satisfied, or content. They're always running towards this feeling that the next experience or the next stimulation will finally be the thing that fulfills you. In the Enneagram community, that's called gluttony. It's constantly searching for that next thing. 7s can struggle with futuristic thinking, and that is one of their strengths as well. Like futuristic thinking, they're great visionaries. They are able to think about 5-year plans and envision great things and make these amazing roadmaps for the future, but they also have a lot of trouble being present, being happy with what is happening right now. The core longing of a type 7 is to know that you have everything you need to be happy right now. That is something that 7s can really struggle to internalize. Frog Party says, that's me every day. I just want to be outside. Abby Martin, thanks for being here. Go help your mom with groceries. D. Olson says, big sister is a 7 wing 8. She recently realized that her intense focus on the future fun helps her ignore her pain. Exactly. It's 7s are constantly running from pain, whether that be emotional, physical, relational, like all of those, that icky feelings. 7s are like, nah, I'm good. Let's move on to the next thing. They have rose-colored glasses on pretty much all the time. All right, let's talk about type 8s, my resident 8s who want to fight me. I'm only saying that because someone commented in the beginning that they were an 8 and they're going to fight me on it, which made me laugh. Okay, Enneagram type 8s, they're known as the challenger or the protector. One thing I like to note before we go into it is there is a celebrity Enneagram 8 out there that recently went on a talk show and talked about being an 8, and that is Amy Poehler, also known as Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation. She is an Enneagram type 8. So if you want someone to picture as an 8, I think Amy Poehler is a really good one. They're assertive, confident mavericks. Their main desire in life is to protect themselves and to protect the people that they love. When they were kids, They had an experience or two of what it feels like to not be in control and not have power and to be manipulated. And they were like, never again. I am going to be as strong as humanly possible because I don't want to be put in that position ever again. And something about eights, especially in, on Instagram, you see a lot of like memes and stuff like that about eights. I am definitely guilty of posting these things about eights, of stereotyping them as like really aggressive, like kind of bears going after things. Like they are aggressive, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the biggest heart of anybody you have ever met. My mom is going to hate me for this, because she's probably watching right now. But my mother is an Enneagram 8, and I have this vision of her from when we were little, that I think sums up an 8 so well. And we were at a public pool when we were little kids, and my little brother was in the pool, and some kid was like trying to drown him. I don't think with malicious intent, but some kid was on top of my brother. And my mom was holding my little sister. She like hands her to somebody else. And I just watched my mom sprint in her clothes into the pool. She jumps into the pool. She rips this kid off my brother. She picks up my brother. She goes back, grabs the baby, and she's like, come on, Abby, we're going. And we like leave. And so this image of my mom jumping into the pool with her clothes on is like, to me, the ultimate 8 is like this ultimate protector of like, you will not harm my children. I love these children. I've got them. I've got their back. So yes, the core fear of a type 8 is to be weak, powerless, or manipulated. They do not want to be in that position. They want to protect themselves and their loved ones. That is their core desire. That's the thing they're always chasing. The core weakness of an Enneagram 8 is excess, which could look like steamrolling other people to get what you want. It could look like being aggressive and trying to talk over people and be the leader no matter what, because you don't want to give up any control. That's something that 8s really struggle with. And if you are an 8, you probably already know that that is something that you struggle with. Typically, I find that in workshops where I have all the types out in front of me and we're all chatting, like 8s are the type that is like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, definitely me. Whereas most of the types are like, yeah, I guess that's me, man. 8s are like, yeah, that rings true. They're like always very sure that they are, that those are their core motivations. And then the core longing of a type 8 is to know that they will not be betrayed. And underneath that is this idea that you can be vulnerable. You can show your soft side and you're not going to be taken advantage of. Vulnerability is the key to health for Enneagram 8s. So having that feeling of not being betrayed and really believing that can be very helpful for 8s as they grow in their Enneagram journey. Leslie says, haha, my 8's friends reaction also. Yeah, it's so funny to me. I just freaking love 8s. Dad is an 8. He's a very aggressive hugger. I love 8s as well. Their assertiveness is contagious. Female 8s, I have so much respect for them. Their hearts are so big. Honestly, if you guys, I don't know if you all are subscribed to Leanna Michelle's channel. I think they've rebranded as Top Knot Comedy, but Michelle Fortin on that channel is, first of all, hilarious. She's also an Enneagram 8 and one of my absolute favorite people. Such a go-getter. What a giant heart for people. Like, I freaking love 8s. I love all you guys. Okay, let's go on to the last and definitely not least Enneagram type. This is Enneagram type 9. Okay, 9s are known as the mediator or the peacemaker. These types feel like the ultimate go with the flow person, right? They're always willing to accommodate others. If you ask them where should we go to eat, they're like, wherever you want to go. They have a very go along to get along kind of personality. But underneath that is this desire for independence and autonomy. Type nines fear conflict over everything. They don't want to lose connection with other people. They don't want to be ignored. In fact, I did a whole like pet peeve series on my Instagram, and I had all the Enneagram types submit their biggest pet peeves. And first of all, I always get way more answers from nines when I do any kind of poll on my Instagram. And second of all, I had over 600 replies from nines, which was like double the amount of other people saying that their biggest pet peeve was being talked over, being ignored, or some version of that, like someone interrupting them, not listening to them, ignoring them in conversation. Like that cuts right to the heart of a type nine's core fear. On the flip side of that, their core desire is having inner stability and peace of mind. They want things to be good. They want things to be calm. They want everything to feel copacetic, right? They are trying to keep the peace with all the people in their life, and they do this at the expense of their own authentic selves. So that looks like their core weakness, right? It's sloth. And I don't want you to think of a very lazy sloth, which I know is a stereotype when you say sloth. Instead of someone being lazy or slow moving, because that is not an Enneagram 9, I want you to think about sloth as more of a falling asleep to your inner desires. It's falling asleep to who you are, what you want. Nines are in that gut triad. So they react to things instinctively and they feel anger. That's their first emotion that comes up. But unlike eights, who let that anger erupt immediately like a volcano, nines say, anger is bad. I don't want to rock the boat. Sit down and you're rocking the boat. Guys and dolls reference there. And they push that anger down and they say, okay, I am going to hide what I really want. I'm going to hide my actual feelings just so that everyone else can be happy, because I just couldn't bear it if there was any conflict or things just didn't feel copacetic. Then the core longing of a type 9 relates right back to their core fear, which is they don't want to be ignored. They don't want to lose connection, and they want to know that their voice, their presence matters. If you have a 9 in your life, listening to them and thanking them for bringing things up, for letting their needs be known. Okay. I always make a point of letting my type 9 friends know that like I'm very grateful for when they tell me things that they need that might kind of rock the boat, because I think that's very important for us non-nines to reaffirm the nines who are going out of their comfort zone and voicing what they need. And we need to affirm that by saying, hey, what you say matters, what you think matters, you matter, we hear you. My best friend, Lau says, my best friend is a 9 and I'm very, I'm learning new things. My best friend is a 9 and I'm very afraid of not listening to him because he really hates to feel ignored. Exactly. It cuts right to the core fear of Enneagram 9s. Molly says, this actually reminds me of myself. I know 100% I'm a 4-wing 5, but it helps knowing that I probably have a 9 somewhere. Pearl says, it's strange. I really hate conflict, so I always type as 9, but I really don't feel like the description fits me in general. That is a very good point, Pearl. There are a lot of things that make the Enneagram nuanced. And one of those things is subtypes. And we're not going to get into that today, but it is the thing that you use to protect yourself. It's basically your coping mechanism through the world. So even though there are 9 types, there are actually 3 different types of each Enneagram number, and they present differently. So if one of these types, you feel like you resonate with some of the core motivations, but the general descriptions that you usually see don't quite match up, it is all about the subtypes, baby. We're not going to go into that today because this is an overview and a crash course of the Enneagram. So I'm definitely going to be doing some courses in the future and videos in the future about subtypes. So if you don't feel like, man, like I just don't feel like I'm that stereotypical description of that type, you may be the counter type of one of the subtypes of that number. So if y'all enjoyed this crash course and you want to go deeper into finding your Enneagram type, you have lots more questions and you're not quite sure which type you are, I'm having a Find Your Type workshop. It's going to be 3.5 hours this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific. That's April 15th. And I invite you all to join me. I have a 10% off code. The workshop is $39 and the 10% off code is in the description of this video. I am very excited to dive deeper into subtypes and triads and how to really pinpoint your type. And one thing that is going to be different from this live stream versus the workshop is we get to hear from you directly. So I want to hear you guys, let you ask questions in person, and we can really go through and figure out what your main type is. That said, Q&A time. Can you guys put all those questions that you have in the chat, and we'll get to some of them. I see one from Abby Martin. Abby says, can you have a deficiency in type-like behavior? I do not resonate with some types at all. I feel like I have things to learn and gain from certain types. Absolutely. I think that if you don't feel like you absolutely match that one type, there are a lot of things to look at. For example, where you are in stress and where you are in growth. Me at 21, being very unhealthy in quite a toxic relationship in a bad living environment, that Abby looks very different and has a very different coping skills than this Abby who is married and 32 and just has a much more stable situation. So things like your stress and growth paths, where you go in health, your subtypes, that all can affect what your type, how your type manifests. M says, do you offer one-on-one sessions? I do not at this point. I'm only doing workshops for companies. So if you have a company or you want to bring me up to your boss, that is currently what I am doing. Let's see. M says, is this more type 7 or 4? It enjoys experiencing deep happiness, sadness, joy, grief, etc. Very introspective. If you enjoy experiencing deep sadness and grief, that is definitely an Enneagram type 4. 4s do not run away from the uncomfy feelings, and 7s run away from the uncomfy feelings. 4s are okay being melancholy, sitting on the Scottish moors, like feeling like their ancestors that came before them. 7s are going to be like, okay, that feeling's uncomfortable. What can I do to cover that up? I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. Like, what can we do to get past this uncomfortable feeling? So I would definitely say that is more 4 than 7. Rex also said wings 2 will make an Enneagram number look different. That's another way that the Enneagram is fluid. It's Enneagram wings. We have not gone into that today because, again, this is an overview, kind of a crash course of the Enneagram. I have a lot of videos about wings on my channel, though, so that is there for you if you want to dive into that. Bertha says, do you teach workshops for already certified coaches? I'm interested. I have never done that. I'd be open to doing that. I really would just like to hang out with a bunch of coaches. I think that would be super fun. Wanna Be Human, it's a great username, says, how can you differentiate between being a 6 and actually having anxiety? Actually, I'm just going to take this off. So we are in Q&A mode. That's a really good question. So mental illness is a thing. And as somebody who, I am on medication for anxiety and depression, and I am an Enneagram type 3. So a lot of the time when I was first discovering the Enneagram, I was unsure if I was a 6 or a 3 because my mental illness looked a lot like the weaknesses of an Enneagram 6. What I would encourage you to do is look at what the 4 core motivations are and think about a time when you were at your healthiest and where you are operating out of. Sometimes mental illness can, cover that up and make it more difficult to find out what your type is. All Enneagram types can have anxiety. But the reasons why they do the things that they do, that's going to be different. Are you looking for a soulmate because you want security and support and you want to feel like relationally solid? That is an Enneagram 6. Are you looking for a soulmate and like feeling anxious that you can't find them? But you kind of like are afraid of putting yourself out there and giving away details about yourself and being vulnerable. That might be a type 5. They're having anxiety about finding a person, but it's not coming from an Enneagram 6's motivations. It's coming from an Enneagram 5's motivations. Let me know if that is helpful at all. Avi says, feels like I could be a 1-wing 2 or a 3-wing 2. I resonate with both types. She's an INFJ, so maybe the introverted 3 looks different than general 3s. Yes. So I am actually a introverted Enneagram 3, and that is also, if bringing in subtypes again, but that is a self-preservation 3. It looks very different from other subtypes of 3s because it's a little bit more inward focused, especially 3-wing 4s. They are more in tune with their artist self, and they do want success, but they don't want to be seen as someone who is looking for success. So it's more of like I want to be successful, but I'm going to do it really quietly. Okay. So yes, there are definitely introversion and extroversion makes a difference on how the types look. Meg says, how can I stop seeking constant approval as a 3? It's a good question. I don't know, because I'm like always looking for approval. And that is something hard to work through and something that I do not have the answers for. I'm, again, still figuring out life, and I'm not my healthiest self. Maybe when I'm 80, I'll be like the super wise 3 who has all the answers. I do not know. Ghostly says, I know in another video you mentioned you're learning about tri-types. When do you think you'll be posting content about that? I don't foresee myself ever posting content about tri-types. I've flirted with the idea in the past. I would very much rather focus on wings, stress paths, subtypes. Tri-types to me, a lot of Enneagram teachers find them very helpful. And I myself find that it can convolute the purpose of the Enneagram, and it can be helpful for some people, and I say go for it, but I am not going to be teaching it because I'm not certified in tri-types. I know there's a lot of courses that people can do with the founders of the tri-type theory that would make me way more qualified to teach about it. Secondly, I think that most people just need to learn about their main type and pinpoint their main type. And I don't want to confuse anyone who is coming to the Enneagram for the first time. And I'm talking about tri-types. So that's not something that's currently on the plan in terms of content on this channel. Molly says, any books, podcasts you've recommended for someone who's not religious? Do It for the Gram podcast is amazing. I love that one. I do love The Road Back to You. They do talk about like a higher power, but it's not necessarily like a religious book. If you want something that's totally secular, I recommend The Honest Enneagram by Sarah Jane Case. She's the founder of Enneagram and Coffee on Instagram. She's awesome. I love her book because I always recommend it to my corporate workshops because it puts the Enneagram in very simple terms. It's very easy to understand, and it's incredibly compassionate. It's an incredibly compassionate way to learn about very uncomfy things, which is your cringy self. Skywalk Trice, I am. Okay. Do you find correlations between a person's Enneagram and astrological chart? Full disclosure, I know nothing about astrology. I believe astrology is about the time when you're born and where the planets are and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that. And I would say that there are no correlations between the type because astrological chart is, based on when you were born. What were the details of the world when you were born? And a person's Enneagram type is all about your core motivations. Why do you do the things that you do? Tatum says, team anxiety. Yeah. True, Tatum. Oh my gosh. Bertha just sent $250. That is very, very sweet. Thank you so much. That is really, really sweet. Thank you. Yes, Tatum, I am an introvert. I might not look it because I am on the internet being very animated all the time. But after this live stream, I'm going to have to go lay down and hibernate to get back to my normal self. Meg says she's definitely an extroverted 3. Want to be human. I love your handle. If someone relates to the core fears, desires, or personalities of more than one type, how can they determine what they actually are? That is a great question. That's one thing we're going to be going over in my course on Saturday is what do you do when you're stuck between 2 types or a few different types? I look at all of the triads and we go through and figure out where you stand on a lot of different reactions to different situations. And that to me helps narrow down what your main type is. Also, something that is often taught about the Enneagram is that if you feel like you relate to all of the types or you feel like you can find yourself in all of them, you may be an Enneagram type 9. They're at the top of the Enneagram symbol for a reason. They are a great merger of people. They are able to put themselves in everyone else's shoes. They are, just an incredible diplomat merger of people. And because of that, they're able to relate with pretty much everyone. So oftentimes I find that 9s see themselves in everyone and have trouble making a decision as to what number they are. I'm not saying that you are a 9, but I'm saying that is a common thing that happens when 9s are trying to find their type. Karen says, what kind of partner would a type 8 look for in relation to their fears? That's a really good question. I preach pretty heavily on this channel that there is no perfect type for each Enneagram type. The healthiest relationship is 2 people who are working on themselves and are interested in loving themselves and other people better. So healthy people make healthy relationships. I would look for a partner who is working on themselves and interested in, diving deeper into their personality. You want to look for someone who is trustworthy, someone that you can confide in, that you can be vulnerable with. And that could be any of the Enneagram numbers, honestly. So you want to look for someone who is going to set your mind at ease, is going to get straight to the point with you, not beat around the bush. And that could be anyone. That's anyone who is looking to love you and others better. I'm scrolling down looking for some questions. Kiki says, maybe Rec Online can help if we have a heavy wing. Does that skew our lines too? If I'm a 7-wing 8, the vertex line is a blend of 7 and 8, right? So my lines also shift. I do not believe that is a thing. I might be wrong, but your wings are kind of like salt and pepper, like a flavoring of your type. And again, for anyone who's new to the Enneagram and is on this live stream and you're like, what the heck are wings? I've got videos on my channel, but don't worry about it. The biggest thing that you need to focus on right now is finding your main type, and wings come later. But yes, think of more of your wings as a flavoring of your personality. And not necessarily something that is going to shift your core motivations at all. The core motivations stay the same. Yeah, holy crap, Bertha, you're amazing. I'm honestly shocked. Thank you so much for the money. I'm just I'm really grateful. That's very sweet. Fatima says, what would an unhealthy type 9 look like? And what should you do when you confront one? Unhealthy type nines, they could look like someone being passive aggressive, not speaking their mind, having like internal resentment. When you have an unhealthy type nine in your life, I would encourage you to ask them what they need. What are their thoughts? You want them to speak their mind. You don't want them to completely dive into their closet of doom. What I mean by that is like closet of doom. I've literally never said that in my life. You don't want them to completely forget themselves, right? You don't want them to fall asleep to who they are. So something you can do for them is to help them wake up to who they are, ask them about their desires. Don't ignore them. Make sure that they know their voice and their presence matters. Bertha says, about the withdrawn triad, what do you mean when you say they shut down when they are met with resistance? Give an example of resistance, please. So what she's talking about is the interpersonal coping skills triad. So it's another triad, like we talked about the Centers of Intelligence triad. There is a triad called interpersonal coping styles, and there's withdrawn. The withdrawn triad is types 5. Help me out here. Withdrawn types is types 4, 5, and 9. And when they're met with resistance, that's basically any kind of pushback. So I use this example in my video about interpersonal coping styles, but say you go into a plant store and you're like, this is my plant, I want to buy it. And then the plant guy goes, you don't look like the kind of person who could take good care of a plant. You don't get to buy that plant. I refuse your customer service. The nines, the 5s, and the 4s, that withdrawn triad, they're going to be like, okay, you're right. Yep. I don't know anything about plants. I'm just going to go. I will never buy a plant again. I'm not going to even ever look at a plant. I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. Oh. I thought I was going to sneeze and I did not. Okay. Oh, Bertha, 250 Mexican pesos. Perfect. Amazing. I love it. Thank you. Any money at all is friggin' awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Rex Online says, yes, we are Avatar, The Last Airbender. Freaking best show of all time. All right, I'm going to take one more question. I'm going to go all the way down. Oh, frog party. An unhealthy 9 is like dead to the world. We just drift around not wanting anything. This is my friend Daniel, and he is a 9, and this is a very accurate description of an Enneagram type 9. Last question. I'm going down the list. If Monica from Friends can have a junk closet, Abs can have a closet of doom. Heck yes. Let's find one more question. All right. Nata asks, do you have any anxiety reducing tips for the types? Yeah, I have a lot of tips for burnout, which I think are quite related. I have a video all about tips and tricks for each Enneagram type as they navigate through burnout. Also, the video coming out this Thursday is going to be about my own struggle navigating burnout. So that will also have tips and tricks of how to reduce that. And to me, I think that would be quite helpful. Awesome. That is the end of this live stream. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful to you. Again, if you want to dive deeper into your Enneagram type and join the Find Your Type workshop, a 10% discount link is in the description of this video. I've really enjoyed chatting with y'all. Thank you for being here. You guys are the best. Thanks for all your sweet comments. Thank you, Bertha. Thanks for the Closet of Doom comment. Love all of it. I love you guys. Thanks for being here, and I will see you in the next video.